Coming up on today's video, I want to react to Mel Kiper's latest NFL draft big board because there's a little bit of a civil war going on between Browns fans as to who wants to take a quarterback at number 2 and who wants to maybe trade back or take someone else at the second overall pick. And we can have that debate another day, another time. What I want to focus on today is the prospects themselves because I feel like too many people have been ingrained in the position or the trade idea, and they haven't actually looked at the players themselves or gotten to know who the Browns could be picking as a player. So let's start off with the number 1 player on Kiper's big board. It is the do-it-all man from Colorado, the Heisman winner, Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is a very, very interesting prospect because, on one hand, he's kind of like the Shohei Ohtani of football with his versatility and his ability to play both sides of the football. Nearly 1,500 snaps in 13 games on offense and defense. And it's just astounding to see the stamina and the ability to play at such a high level with very little breaks. I mean, most of the time when the offense is on the sideline, not only are they catching their breath, but they're also talking to their position coach, to the offensive coordinator. They're looking over film from what they saw on defense. Hunter never gets that opportunity. He gets a couple of TV timeouts to catch his breath, get a quick swig of water, and then he's right back out there. 6'1", 185 pounds, so from a makeup standpoint, a little bit maybe on the smaller percentile side of things, but he's plenty big to play at a high level on offense or on defense. When you look at his receiving stats, the guy was astounding. 15 total touchdowns, nearly 100 grabs, 1,200 yards. Some people think he might be better as a wide receiver. Some people think he might be better as a defensive back. That I'll leave it up to you to decide for yourself. Personally, I think he's going to project to be a better corner. But what I can tell you is wherever he ends up when training camp rolls around, the wide receiver coach and the secondary coach are going to be at war with one another because they're going to want Hunter on their side of the football in their meeting rooms. And if the team decides to play him just one way because they don't feel like he can play at a high level both ways in the NFL, I'm curious to see which side of the ball he ends up playing. Now, I'm a little bit torn on Hunter's projection. On one hand, I got like two devils on my shoulder. The nice devil is telling me, he's awesome at football. He's a great receiver. He's a great corner. What are we discussing here? The guy's an incredible all-around football player. That's one shoulder. The other shoulder is telling me if he's only going to play one way in the NFL, meaning whichever team takes him, if their plan is to just play him as a corner or as a wide receiver, well, I think we then have to somewhat disregard the other half of his resume when making an evaluation on him. If the Browns only plan to play him as a corner, then we don't have to waste our time looking at his receiver stats because he's not going to be a receiver. And when he only plays one side of the ball, he is still a very good football player. I don't know if he's top 3 in the draft good receiver or top 3 in the draft good corner. And I'm starting to listen to that side a little bit more. And that's where I'm stuck. That's where I'm like a Ricky Bobby. I got a pretzel in my head. He's a great football player. He won the Heisman. But is it going to translate super duper well if he doesn't play both ways at the next level? That's the big question I have. Before we look at the other players on Kiper's big board, we are losing for the first time maybe ever in a subscriber battle with the Ravens rundown here at Chat Sports. Their season just came to an end, which was great to see. On the other hand, had the Bills lost, the Browns would have had an earlier round 3 draft pick because Cleveland has Buffalo's pick. By the way, I don't think Amari Cooper is even going to games anymore. You hardly see him at all. But anywho, let's make sure we take down the Ravens rundown in subscribers for the month of January. Click that subscribe button down below. Moving on to the next player on Kiper's big board, it is Abdul Carter, the edge rusher from Penn State. This is somewhat like Hunter, a very fascinating prospect because it's not a simple slam dunk. There's no real debate to have here. He's a surefire thing. For starters, whichever team takes him, they are taking a pass rusher who will have only played that position for one season. He started off as an inside linebacker at Penn State and then made the transition in 2024 to being a traditional edge rusher outside linebacker. If you're concerned about that transition, I'll remind you that Micah Parsons plays defensive end right now for the Cowboys. He was not a defensive end at Penn State, so you can make the change in the NFL from inside to outside linebacker and not have it be such a major speed bump in your career. 6'3", 259 pounds, so there's a good makeup here. I'm not sure if he's quite big enough to be a true defensive end in a 4-3 defense. Not too far off, but maybe 5-10 more pounds, and a defensive coordinator will feel a little bit more comfortable at him putting his hand on the ground against NFL tackles. He led college football in tackles for loss with 23.5. You are looking at someone who is going to be picked not just because of his production, but maybe mostly because of his athletic traits. The guy's an absolute freak. For his size and the speed that comes along with it, he doesn't have a deep arsenal of pass rush moves because he's still learning the position a little bit, which makes it a little bit risky to use a top 5 draft pick on someone who is still learning the position. You are drafting someone for their traits along with 1 season of production, which makes him a little bit unique of an edge rusher prospect to go top 5. I went back and I looked at edge rushers who have gone top 5, and all of them have plenty of production. When it comes to Carter, we really only have 1 season of film and tape and production at the position he's going to play at in the NFL to go off of. Like I said, I went back all the way to the 2020 draft, and here are the last 5 edge rushers taken in the top 5. I didn't include, there were no last year anyway, but you can see the sacks on the left versus games played on the right, and Carter, 23 sacks in 42 games. Will Anderson, 34.5 and 41. Walker was purely drafted for traits, and he's having a nice career so far with the Jags. I know Hutchinson's been better with the Lions, but don't get it twisted. Walker's still been very good for Jacksonville. Hutchinson, 18.5 in 43 games, but I will remind you, for Walker and Hutch, and a little bit of Anderson as well, those guys were somewhat victims to 2020 COVID college football, especially in the Big Ten, where Hutchinson only played like 3 games, I think. So he didn't really have a good opportunity to rack up sacks in the second to last year of his college football career. Chase Young, 30.5 sacks in 36 games. So when it comes to Abdul Carter, he's still a little bit raw at the position. And if that makes you a little queasy for using a top 5 pick on, I'm not going to shame you for that. But in 1 season, we saw him pop off. I'm confident that he's going to make the transition nicely to the NFL and continue playing that edge rusher spot. Between Carter and Hunter, if the Browns, let's say, have no intention to go quarterback and they want to stay at 2, which player do you want them to take? I'm going to go with Abdul Carter because of that devil on my shoulder telling me if Hunter only plays corner or receiver, I don't know if he's a top 3 corner or a top 3 receiver draft pick. But when you put them together, it makes it very interesting. So that really comes down to what the Browns, have in mind for Travis Hunter. On to number 3. It is Mason Graham from the team up north. One of the most ferocious and just a pure menace of a defensive tackle last year for the Wolverines. He was a bee to prepare for. There's no other way to put it. He blew up plays on a routine basis. He's an incredible run defender who also has shown some pass rushing flashes, but I'm not going to go as far to say this is an interior guy who can also get after the quarterback on a consistent basis. He had a couple of sacks earlier on in the season, and then that part of his game started to fade away a little bit, but he's still an outstanding interior defensive lineman. He finished 5th in stops, which is a PFF metric where they keep track of how often a defensive tackle does, a good job of tackling the running back for no gain or for a minimal gain. It's a stop when you know it, you see it. So Graham as a prospect is someone that I feel very confident and very, very safe about. 52 tackles last year for the Wolverines, 7.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. He created 26 pressures, so the stats are right there. The sacks maybe aren't where you want them to be if you're looking for a true interior defensive line threat when it comes to getting to the quarterback, but I like him a lot, and my only big, concern with him is do you go interior defensive line top 5 if that guy doesn't have elite pass rushing traits? That may not be a good use of a very quality draft pick. The same reason why you don't see safeties and guards go in the top 5. They might be great, they might be future Pro Bowl players, but you rarely see those positions go top 5. And you rarely see interior defensive linemen go top 5. Aaron Donald was the 12th overall draft pick, and he was a stud coming out of Pitt. And teams regret that, but even he fell outside the top 10 or right towards the top 10, and he had a bunch of sacks his last year for the Panthers. But overall, Graham is your safe quality draft pick, meaning if you are unsure about Hunter when it comes to whether he's going to play both ways in the NFL, or Carter after just one season at this position and using a top 5 pick on him, Mason Graham is someone who I can tell you is going to play 8 to 12 quality seasons in the NFL, make 3, 4, 5 Pro Bowls, and he is going to be a game wrecker on the interior for you. He is maybe one of the most surefire things you have in this draft class, but it's all about ranking your position value. Before we move on to the rest of Kiper's big board, quick shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. You see, what Game Time Picks does is it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. If you want to go to a Cavs game or any other sporting event or concert in your area, visit Game Time today because they're giving the Dog Pound $20 off. Now, the way it works is you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. I put all that information for you guys in the comments and description of today's video. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. It's a great way to go catch a Cavs game or any other sporting event in your area. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Getting back to Kiper's big board, let's talk about number 4 on Mel's list. After Travis Hunter, Carter, and Graham, we've got Shedeur Sanders, the Colorado quarterback. And now we begin the quarterback portion of today's episode. You guys probably know where I stand on these two next quarterbacks and what I want the Browns to do, but that's not the point of today's video. The point of today's video is to get to know these prospects for who they are. Their pros, their cons, their identity, their makeup. So let's get to know Dion Sanders a little bit here. 6'2", 215 pounds. You can check the box of he's got good size. You're not too worried about like a Baker situation, the hand size. No. The physical makeup is there for an NFL starting quarterback. Now, he doesn't have elite speed. I know you might think Dion Sanders, he's got to be super duper fast. That's not really Shedeur. He can use his legs to scramble for first downs, but don't get it in your head that he's going to be a dual threat player. No, he is not a dual threat quarterback whatsoever. He is a pocket passer. He's got incredible accuracy. I'd say that's his number one skill set, his number one trait. He's got great toughness, too. The guy was sacked 99 times over the past 2 seasons. Now, you might look at that and go, wow, that's a tough man, and that's a bad offensive line. If I have any Colorado fans watching right now, you'll probably say it's not a great offensive line, but there were some sacks that Shedeur took that were avoidable. And it comes back to Sanders has a tendency to hold on to the ball for too long. And in the collegiate ranks, sometimes you can get away with that because defensive linemen in the Pac-12 aren't as fast as, or Big 12, in the Big 12 as they are in the NFL. But that's not going to be the same in the NFL. My overall synopsis on Sanders is he's accurate, but he lacks the elite traits, right? He doesn't have some incredible arm and someone who could put the ball anywhere on the field, like Aaron Rodgers type accuracy of being able to drop it in the bucket. He doesn't have a Josh Allen cannon. He doesn't have the Patrick Mahomes type of wizardry and the ability to make something out of nothing. Kind of reminds me of Geno Smith. And that's not a bad thing. I think Geno's probably a top 16 starting quarterback in the NFL. But do you use a top draft pick on a Geno Smith? Like, that's up for debate here. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. You don't have a crystal ball. So I'm not here to try and sell you on what I'm saying is going to be absolute. I'm just telling you what I've seen when watching and reading, blurbs and profiles on him. Another thing that jumped out to me was last year at Colorado, nearly 40% of his passes were screens and RPOs, which require very little to none decision making in terms of where you're going to throw the football. You're not going through progressions. On an RPO, you got to decide, do you want to run it? Do you want to pass it? That's a decision. But you're not standing in the pocket going through your first read, your second read, your third read. When 40%, 4 out of 10 of his passes are predetermined as to where the ball is going to be thrown, it's a little easy. In the NFL, it's not going to be that easy. So that's something that jumps out to me. Also, he took 31 sacks. Huge number. Played 13 games. He had 3.4 seconds to throw on average. That's an eternity. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4, and he sacked. The ball's got to come out quicker with Shedeur. And it's got to go through the progressions. And those are things that sound alarm bells for me. The fifth and final player on Kiper's big board is Cam Ward, the Miami quarterback. So he's got Ward right behind Sanders. I think Kiper's a little bit alone in this spot here, but no one's got the crystal ball, so I won't shame anyone for saying they like one quarterback over another. It'd be like if I shame someone for saying, you like Sam Darnold more than Lamar Jackson? You're crazy. So these things happen. Ward, though, 6'2", 223 pounds. Like Sanders, we can check the box in terms of does he have the size of an NFL starting quarterback? Yes. Now, unlike Sanders, he has an elite arm. And by elite arm, I mean incredible strength and power to put the ball anywhere on the field, no matter what his footing is. Like, he doesn't need to be in a traditional base and have a clean, perfect pocket to deliver a nice pass. Sometimes things get messy. Ward, when it got messy, made some great plays. He's a gunslinger. He admitted that himself, and he's going to put the ball deep downfield. I went back and I looked, and I think you guys might find these stats interesting. I compared Cam Ward's passes of 10 yards plus from the line of scrimmage to the other 6 quarterbacks from last year's draft who went round 1. 40% of the passes last year for Ward were 10 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. That is more than Caleb Williams. That is more than Jaden Daniels. That's similar to Drake May. That's a little below Penix and a little below. I was surprised to see McCarthy was so high, and it's 9 points higher than Bo Nix. So if you're wondering, hey, who's Cam Ward as a quarterback? He's a gunslinger. He likes to go deep, and he did it pretty well. Completion percentage of passes 20-plus yards down the field, 45%. A little bit below Caleb, further below Jaden, but it definitely helps when you're Jaden Daniels and you're throwing to Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. Drake May, Michael Penix, he's in that same neighborhood, 10 spots or 9 spots below JJ, even below Bo Nix. So he likes to go deep with it here, but no guarantee it's going to go to good hands. And that's where I draw the comparison to a little Brett Favre light. The ball is going to be all over the field. A little bit like Jameis. And it's going to be exciting. Maybe Cam Ward is just our next Jameis. You're going to get 30 touchdowns, but you're going to get 30 interceptions. I don't know if you want to use a top draft pick on 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. Jameis was first overall, and he only made it 5 seasons in Tampa after throwing 30 touchdowns, but also 32 interceptions. So that's the big red flag I have for Ward. Moving on to the other top 10 players in Kiper's big board, just to kind of give you guys a nice even top 10 list. Will Johnson, someone who I'm super high on, the corner from Michigan. Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. We got McMillan, the Arizona receiver. Walker and Banks round out 8, 9, and 10. Circling back to the 2 quarterbacks, though, if you had to pick one, who would it be? Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm generally leaning towards Ward because he's got the great arm talent, and there's definitely some coaching that needs to be done to reduce the turnover-prone plays. But as for Shedeur, I'm just not seeing enough elite traits where I'm like, wow, that's something that no one can coach and no one can replicate. So I would lean towards Ward, and if Ward goes to the Titans, Browns are really going to have to ask themselves, how much do they like Shedeur Sanders? A couple quick things here before we sign off. I know I said I promised I wouldn't make this about the Civil War, but this is basically summing up the last 2 weeks on Browns Twitter as I bicker with Tyler Johnson, Nick Carnes, and other people who are fun to follow, but they are in the mindset of draft a rookie quarterback. Like, the bar they have for, well, what's a better option is too high of a bar. I could say a better option than drafting a quarterback is, signing Kirk Cousins or bringing back Jacoby Brissett. And then they say, well, that's not a better option. And by they, I just mean the general camp. And I go, how do you know, right? So they're stuck on, like Zuck, looking down there and not look at the eyes up here. Before we sign off, we're going to pick a card. We've got a brand new producer today. Reed has the Monday off, but I still wanted to get a video out to you guys. So we're going to welcome on Mr. Dylan. He's going to make his Browns Report debut. Dylan, which card do you want to go with?
Glad I'm here, and I'm going to go with the King of Hearts.
King of Hearts? I like it. There we go. No hesitation about it, just right from the gut. I'm going to go with the 9 of Spades. You were close. Jack of Diamonds. Jack of Diamonds. All right. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll sign off. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you all tomorrow with more Browns news and rumors.